Hello. Happy Wednesday, everybody. How's everyone doing? I'm really excited to be here. I'm always excited to chat. I did my very first, we started our Ucoachia classes, and I probably said that I was excited to be on that class and to be teaching that like probably 5 or 6 times in a 30-minute 25-30 minute period. So safe to say I'm very excited anytime I get to chat. So I brought my coffee with me and we are chatting about the inner critic. So this is going to be more of a mindset training, but something that you need to know about me is that I love blending mindset with strategy. So even though this is going to be a mindset training, I am very much going to be giving you some action steps and some things that you can do so that you walk away knowing, okay, I've got some actual like tangible things I can do, and it's not just about thinking about things. But I do hopefully have you think a little bit as well about this. So why are we even talking about the inner critic or your ego? I don't know if you have ever been tapped into some of the things that you think, or some of the reasons why you might hold yourself back in doing something that's scary. So when we start our businesses, we get our coaching certification, we get online, right? We're so excited to get clients, and all of a sudden, all of these thoughts come, kind of swarming in, because it can be really scary and really overwhelming. And there's a lot to get around when it comes to building your business online. What are other people going to think of me? Am I really cut out for this? Any imposter syndrome that comes up, any confidence issues, any perfectionism issues that you might have. And all of those feelings, all of those thoughts, they're really thoughts. We sometimes consider them as feelings, and sometimes they do make us feel certain things, but they really do start with a thought. And that thought is the inner critic or your ego talking. For any of you ladies out there, I like to call it the inner mean girl as well, just because it's fun. It's fun to reference a fun movie, a classic movie, right? But this is really your ego talking, and your ego wants to keep you safe. Probably some of you who are like health coaches and in your coaching certifications and in your experiences, you've probably learned about the ego, and you probably teach it to your clients. You probably, that's probably a big part of what you teach. And so very interesting that we need to go through this work too as we are building our business, right? So it's really important to talk about how to manage that inner critic. I know that a lot of my clients or a lot of my community has said to me before, when I've asked, done some market research on how do you manage this voice inside your head that doesn't seem to want you to succeed, that's like kind of mean, right? And they'll say, well, I want to kill her. Like, I say some really mean things to her back. And I just wish she would go away. I want to ignore her. And, first of all, that's a little bit violent because even though the inner critic is not you, it is a part of you. So, we don't really want to have that violence towards it. It doesn't really help. And also, it's a lot of energy that you're putting towards that. And I don't want that to happen for you, right? Like, I want you to put energy into your business. I want you to put energy into your clients. I want you to put energy into getting clients, and then your offers and all of that stuff that, that I know is what it takes to succeed. And so really important to make sure that we manage this, because thoughts become things. You've probably heard that before, but it is the truth, right? Thoughts, I'm going to have a good day today. That becomes a good day. Right? I'm going to have a bad day today. Everything sucks. Well, you're going to, whether it's conscious or not, you're going to be looking for things that suck, right? All day. So by the way, just want to stop here for a second, let you know, if you want to write anything in the comments, if you're feeling like you need some clarification, if you'd like to participate, I am so happy to have you and do that. So I am watching the comments just to make sure, and hopefully they will work. And then also, if you're watching the replay, definitely make sure that you are, letting me know that you watched it and what your takeaways are, so that I know how to help you moving forward, because I love doing these trainings, but I want to make sure that they are helpful for you. Okay, so if you kind of manage these thoughts, manage that ego, it can become really debilitating, right? If they aren't managed, they can become really, really damaging, actually, to our worth, to our confidence. And that's not necessarily okay in my book, right? That's why I really, really wanted to address this in one of these trainings that I'm doing in this group, because I think that I can give you any good strategy, right? You can pick up a template or any strategy for getting clients and for running a business. But the thing is, if your thoughts aren't really where they need to be, and that critic just keeps coming up, there will always be a wall, right? There will always be, I like to call it, a shaped boulder, a boulder that's shaped the same as you, right? Like standing in your way. And you're not going to be able to move around it and chip away at it and get, to where you want to go, right? You'll stay stuck at a limit. And I never ever want you to feel like there's a limit to your growth, limit your growth for a good reason. Don't limit it for a bad reason, a reason that is because you can't get out of your own way. Okay, so there are 3 ways that we can manage our ego, and we can sort of, get around or chip away at this boulder that is the same shape as us, because I think a lot of times, hi Nancy, I think a lot of times we, we think that we can't really see around ourselves. And so often the key to success is just making sure we get over ourselves a little bit, right? And so often we think that the ego is who we are. We think that these are the thoughts that are coming from our ego and our inner critic are us. They're not us, right? What they are is a group of experiences that we, kind of made a conclusion about, told our ego, oh, that sales call didn't go well. I guess I'm not good at sales calls, right? So now the ego's like, oh, I'm going to keep that. And the next time she tries to go for a sales call, I'm going to say, remember, you're not good at sales calls, right? So maybe you don't even go for the sales call. Or so maybe you don't market the fact that you have a sales call. Or maybe once you get on it, you already know it's going to fail, right? So this is just an example of what it looks like when we tell the ego or the inner critic something, and then, we kind of pay for it later a little bit, if, just to be as blunt as I possibly can be. Okay, so the first step is choosing love over fear. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is we are actually in control of our thoughts. Like I said before, thoughts become things, right? Thoughts become feelings, which become actions. We are actually in control of what we say to ourselves. We are in control of what happens. And so what the ego uses as the conclusion to the experience. So let's take the sales call again, right? We could say to ourselves, I'm bad at sales calls if that didn't go well, right? Or we could say a more loving thought. And what would be a more loving thought? This is going to be different for everyone, so it's a little hard to teach. But just as an example, the more loving thought could be, I think I might need to practice a little bit more, right? That could be the more loving thought. It could even be like if you were maybe feeling a little confused about your offer or something, you can like kind of pinpoint where it sort of like turned a little bit. I know for me, I used to talk about my offer to the person like as though they, signed up for some kind of seminar or something instead of just having a conversation. And so for me, I remember, having to say, okay, you know what? I think that if I did a session with myself and got really clear on the result and practice what it would be like to really establish that rapport and keep asking questions to the person and making sure that they, got their questions answered instead of me talking all the time, that would probably be more helpful, right? That's a more loving thought instead of I'm bad at sales calls, because they can both, there's some truth to when you haven't done sales calls before that you might not be great at it, right? There are very few people that are just like awesome at sales calls right away, right? It's a learned thing. And selling is a learned thing in general. And so I think, being kinder and choosing that more loving thought, there isn't going to be anybody else in this, dog eat dog world of competition. There isn't going to be anybody else treating you as kindly as you treat yourself. You have to start there, right? And for some of you, pretty much all of you who have clients that or want to get clients, that's what they need, right? They need compassion, they need support, they need kindness. Be the leader by showing yourself that same kindness first. That's how we lead, right? That's how we build community. That's how we build leadership, is by walking the walk. And by choosing love over fear, you can really do that in any situation, right? I'm just using the sales call as an example, but you can really use that in any situation inside of your business. So remember that a fear thought, a thought that comes from fear, that's your ego. A thought that comes from love, that's you. That's where the difference lies. So the second thing that you are going to want to do to manage your inner critic or your ego is actually, you really do need that first step of understanding that the fear-based thought, that's your ego, that's your inner critic, not you. That's something else that lives inside of you. And then the loving thought, that's you, that's who you really are. That's where your potential lies, right? So this is kind of like two different people going on. The second thing I want to talk to you about, the second way to manage all of this, is to have a curious conversation. Now that you know it's two different people, really, when you think about it, you can have a curious conversation about why this is coming up. Why is that a trigger, right? Why is when someone says, oh, you have to network more, going to a networking event, why is that a trigger? Why is that all of a sudden the reason that the bad thoughts come out, right? And so sitting with that inner critic instead of ignoring it, because when we ignore fear, sometimes it just gets bigger, right? And sometimes it just gets more damaging when we're trying to ignore it. And like I said before, we're putting way more energy than we need to into that, when we really could be putting energy into growing our business. And if we don't do that, burnout will likely come pretty fast, right? It's already, hard enough, right? Running a business. That's why you're here, for the support. So let's not make it harder. So sitting down, really, I know this sounds crazy, but sitting down and having a conversation with that ego, okay? Understanding, watching for declarative statements. I'm bad at sales calls is a very good example of a declarative statement. That's very much like, well, wait a second. You're bad at all sales calls? Are you bad at, can you not get better at sales calls? Is it very definitive? Will you always be bad at sales calls, right? Like, where are we getting this declarative statement from? So having this curious conversation of, okay, well, wait a second, have I only really had 3 sales calls? And one of them actually was, just really not the right fit. And that maybe I was overcompensating for that. Really having that curious conversation of, well, why out of the 3 sales calls that I've had, is the takeaway, I'm bad at sales calls. Okay, 100% of them didn't convert, but I wonder why. And getting curious and really being able to have that back and forth, that conversation, as opposed to, I'm bad at sales calls. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I can never do sales calls again. And really like going into this spiral with your inner critic. You're already having a conversation with them if you're leaning into the fear, right? So leaning into the love is about being curious. How can I get better? Where can I find solutions to this? Who can I reach out to for support, right? And when you reach out to any of us in Ucoachia for support, as a Ucoachia client, then knowing kind of like already what's going on, like, hey, my thought or my trigger is this, and so my thought is that, and I really need support around this. Oh my gosh, like it's so much easier for us to help you, right? When you've already done most of the work, and so much easier for us to help you with that and give you that support. So that's why this is so, so critical. Making sure you're walking away from the declarative statements. You are not fighting with yourself, not spending that energy, and really not ignoring either, because that's energy also, and really getting curious. Like I was actually using this this analogy with a client yesterday. We were talking about Curious George. I have a 6-year-old and she loves Curious George. She always has. And it's so interesting because he just kind of gets curious about stuff and doesn't think about what goes on, right? Who else he's inconveniencing and all of that. And by the end of the episode or the end of the book, he gets the key to the city, right? The mayor is like, oh, thank you so much. And it all started with a thought. Right? It all started with a curious thought. And I'm not saying inconvenience everybody around you, but what's really interesting to me is that he has all this confidence from the fact that he got curious, right? He literally, that is where his start, happened. That's how he learns. And that's how he hopefully learns his lesson so he doesn't do it again, although it kind of seems like he does something else the next time. But he learns. And that's really what we need to be doing here with our business and with our life, right? Okay, last one. So first we've got choosing love over fear. Then we've got, having a conversation, a curious conversation with our inner critic. And then the last one is harnessing its power, because there is a lot of self-doubt, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, all of these things that are going on, not feeling confident, all of these things that are going on when you are growing your business and when you are newer in your online business and your coaching business. And so having that conversation, and also promising yourself that you're going to choose the more loving thought. Oh my gosh, like then it becomes a question of, well, how can you harness that power so that you can work through self-doubt, right? Like I said before, you can think about the facts, because a lot of times with self-doubt, we are saying, oh, I'm not worthy. Well, where's the evidence to suggest that, right? Where is that evidence to suggest that? So you can harness the power of what you already have and harness the power of the ego to change the script, so that the script is like, no, actually, Allison, you've done this before, right? You've done this before and you've been able to get through it, or you're really good at personal reach out, or when you do sales calls, it's really important that you do an agenda before the call starts, so that everyone knows, everyone's on the same page. Like, now your ego is going to start to remind you of the good things that you've done. Now your ego is going to start to have the good memories and start to bring that up for you. So even when it comes to imposter syndrome, feeling like you're not an expert, you can't do this anymore, understanding that you can look for evidence to suggest otherwise is going to be huge for your success. And it's going to allow you to do things that are super scary in some ways, but you're going to be able to get through that fear so much faster. Okay. So hopefully that was helpful. Please let me know what takeaways you have. I love talking about the inner critic, the ego, the mean girl, like whatever you want to call it, because I think it's just so powerful to understand how much control we really do have, right? We cannot control other people's thoughts, feelings, or actions, but we can control everything that we are feeling and thinking, and all of our actions. So I hope this was, sort of empowering for you today. Make sure you do have control. And of course, everybody in Ucoachia, all of the experts, Nancy, Harley, we are all here for you. Okay. So definitely make sure you let us know what your takeaways are. Any thoughts that you're thinking that you want to sort of get around and you're not sure how, we would love to work them out with you. I will be back in a couple of weeks and I'm really excited. All right. Have a great day, everybody.